If you thought the 2026 regulation overhaul was the only thing turning the paddock upside down, think again, because we have just witnessed a strategic masterstroke that has left the board in Ingolstadt absolutely reeling. Jonathan Wheatley has effectively pulled the ripcord, departing Audi with immediate effect. And let's be perfectly honest here, this sudden exit from the German project reeks of a calculated, behind-the-scenes ambush. While the official narrative tries to sell us a story about personal reasons and the struggles of adapting to a quiet life in Switzerland, anyone with their eyes open can see the shadow of a Canadian billionaire looming over this entire situation. Lawrence Stroll does not move without a definitive purpose, and snatching Wheatley away from Audi right now is the opening gambit in a much larger, more aggressive play to transform Aston Martin into the new Red Bull Racing, regardless of the financial cost. Now, you might be asking yourself, why on earth is Aston Martin so desperate for Wheatley when they already have the legendary Adrian Newey on the payroll? If we pause to analyze the internal dynamics, there is a crucial detail that many observers are completely overlooking. Newey is an undisputed genius at the drawing board, a man who can see air, but as a technical manager, burdened with corporate bureaucracy, he is a fish out of water. He loathes the red tape. By bringing Wheatley into the fold, Stroll is effectively liberating Newey, allowing him to stop playing executive and start fixing the Aston Martin Racing 26 chassis, which currently behaves more like a high-end pneumatic drill than a sophisticated racing machine. The telemetry doesn't lie. The vibration issues coming from the Honda power unit are so severe that they are compromising mechanical grip, and Newey needs his attack dog, Wheatley, to handle the operational chaos so he can focus 100% on the aerodynamics. This power vacuum leaves the Audi project, which was supposed to be the stable foundation for our Gabriel Bortoleto, looking more like a strategic minefield. Mattia Binotto is now being forced to juggle multiple roles, and we all know exactly how that tragic script ends. Just ask anyone at Ferrari. Meanwhile, at Silverstone, the plot thickens regarding a certain three-time world champion. Max Verstappen is currently grappling with disastrous energy deployment issues at Red Bull, and if he finds himself below third position in the standings by the summer break, his exit clause becomes a loaded weapon. Jonathan Wheatley is a close personal confidant of Jos Verstappen and Raymond Vermeulen. He is perhaps the only figure in the paddock who commands the absolute trust of the Verstappen inner circle. If Wheatley can prove that the Aston Martin-Honda partnership can deliver a stable platform that doesn't rattle like a tractor at 200 miles per hour, Max might just jump ship without a single backward glance. Will Audi survive this internal hemorrhage, or is Aston Martin about to become the most dominant force on the grid? If we thought the Jonathan Wheatley saga at Aston Martin was the peak of paddock drama, it is only because we haven't taken a magnifying glass to the absolute carnage unfolding inside the Williams garage. The atmosphere at Grove is practically funereal, and frankly, it is not hard to see why. We have all heard the old cliché about promising a rocket and delivering a tractor, but Williams has managed to go one better. They have delivered a tractor that apparently only wants to operate on 3 wheels. Let's be honest, the regression we are witnessing is nothing short of a sporting tragedy for a team with such a storied pedigree. You might find yourself asking, how on earth can a modern Formula 1 car be lifting a wheel? Well, if we pause to scrutinize the telemetry data coming out of the Chinese Grand Prix, the reality is genuinely terrifying. The Formula Williams 48 exhibits a bizarre and catastrophic tendency to lift its inside rear wheel during high-speed cornering. Technically speaking, we are looking at a fundamental mechanical failure, excessive roll stiffness coupled with a suspension geometry that is completely out of sync with the carbon fiber chassis. When that wheel loses its contact patch with the asphalt, the entire aerodynamic platform collapses, leaving the driver as a mere passenger at speeds exceeding 180 miles per hour. This is a foundational design flaw you might expect from a backyard operation, certainly not from a team led by the supposedly meticulous James Vowles. There is a chilling detail that very few people are actually picking up on. Did Carlos Sainz really walk away from the Scuderia for this? The Spaniard managed a miraculous 9th place finish in Shanghai, but his body language during the post-race interviews told the real story. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost, admitting that the team's current performance is at unacceptable levels. To make matters worse, the car is substantially over the minimum weight limit of 798 kilograms, which effectively castrates any attempt at kinetic energy recovery during the long straights. It is as if they are forced to compete while carrying a rucksack full of lead weights. How can you expect a driver of his caliber to remain motivated when the engineering department has handed him a brick? Now, the pressure is about to reach a breaking point. With the extended gap in the April calendar, Williams has precisely 30 days to attempt a desperate salvage operation on what remains of the 26 campaign. Alexander Albon has already been quite vocal, stating bluntly that nothing seems to fix the car's balance. If they cannot rectify this disastrous suspension geometry and shed the dead weight, Williams faces the very real risk of becoming the new Haas of 2 years ago, an expensive, high-speed mobile chicane. The burning question remains, was the 26 project dead on arrival, or is there a hidden miracle currently tucked away in the Grove wind tunnel? Only time will tell if Vowles can stop the bleeding before the investors lose their patience entirely. Let's be perfectly blunt here. Something is rotting behind the garage doors at Maranello, and I can assure you, it isn't Fred Vassar's morning espresso. If we pause to scrutinize the latest public declarations from the Ferrari team principal, he has committed a tactical slip of the tongue, a moment of brutal honesty that very few observers have truly grasped the gravity of. Charles Leclerc, the man long anointed as the legitimate heir to the Scuderia's throne, appears to be at war with his own machinery. There is a critical nuance that most are missing. His signature driving style, that surgical and hyper-aggressive front-end bite, is fundamentally incompatible with the engineering philosophy of these 2026 technical regulations. You might find yourself asking, how does a driver of Leclerc's undeniable caliber suddenly become a fish out of water overnight? The bombshell is that Vasseur himself admitted the current regulations do not naturally align with Charles's inherent strengths. It is the same old story we see in top-flight motorsport. They promised him a precision scalpel and delivered a heavy-duty meat cleaver. With the abolition of the motor generator unit, heat, and the brutal reliance on battery energy deployment, the cars have become significantly more rear-heavy and temperamental under regenerative braking. Sources within the paddock are already whispering that Leclerc is struggling to find the apex points he used to hit with his eyes closed. The car simply refuses to rotate with the fluidity he demands. While Leclerc is desperately trying to decipher the Scuderia Ferrari 26, there is an old lion on the other side of the garage who seems to be relishing the chaos. If we pull the telemetry data from the final stages in Shanghai, Lewis Hamilton was managing his tyre degradation with far more sophistication, whereas Leclerc was effectively cooking his rubber in a frantic bid to compensate for a chronic lack of aerodynamic balance. The 2026 machines demand a much more squared-off driving style due to the complexities of active aerodynamics. When the wing flaps close on the straights, the aero balance shifts so drastically it can catch even a genius off guard. Leclerc thrives on a loose car that he can toss into a corner, but this new Ferrari requires a far more conservative entry to avoid stalling the airflow to the diffuser. Many of you have commented that Ferrari might have designed this car specifically to flatter Hamilton's style, but the cold truth is likely more scientific. The project followed the rigid physics of the new rulebook, and Charles has simply ended up on the losing side of that equation. It is a haunting mirror image of what we saw last season, where Hamilton himself couldn't get his previous car to rotate under braking in the manner he had perfected over decades. Now, the roles have reversed with a vengeance. If Leclerc cannot adapt to this heavy, rear-bias platform that weighs over 798 kilograms, his status as the golden boy of Maranello could evaporate before the summer break. Is this the beginning of the end for the Leclerc era, or can he reinvent himself to stop the Hamilton juggernaut? Let's be perfectly blunt here. What we witnessed at the Shanghai International Circuit was a classic case of winning the battle but losing the entire war. Lewis Hamilton finally tasted the champagne whilst wearing the iconic scarlet overalls. Yet the true cost of that podium might just be the internal harmony that Fred Vassar has fought so desperately to cultivate at Maranello. If we pause to scrutinize the scathing assessment from Jacques Villeneuve, a man who has never been known to sugarcoat his opinions, Hamilton didn't just chase a trophy, he effectively decimated Ferrari's only tactical opportunity to unsettle Mercedes-Benz. It leads one to ask, has the 7-time world champion's personal ambition officially eclipsed the collective interests of the Scuderia? Villeneuve didn't hold back, dropping a bombshell that in just 2 laps of wheel-to-wheel combat, the 2 Ferrari drivers bled 5 precious seconds to Kimi Antonelli. On the abrasive asphalt of Shanghai, shredding your tires in such a frantic manner is nothing short of strategic suicide. There are whispers echoing through the paddock that Hamilton was racing purely for himself, completely oblivious to the fact that Mercedes was opening up a gap that eventually stretched to a humiliating 30 seconds by the checkered flag. You have to wonder if the competitive red mist has blinded him to the bigger picture, or if he simply doesn't care about the constructors' standings as much as his own legacy. There is a sinister detail that very few observers are picking up on. which perfectly explains Hamilton's apparent desperation. The Mercedes power unit has returned to its monstrous, dominant form. A potent rumor is circulating regarding a potential loophole in the 2026 technical regulations that Mercedes has allegedly exploited concerning the engine's compression ratio. Whilst Hamilton and Leclerc are squabbling like they are at a local karting track, the Mercedes cars are flying down the straights with a thermal efficiency that defies conventional explanation. This superior fuel economy is allowing them to deploy much more aggressive energy maps, whilst Ferrari wastes both rubber and time engaged in a civil war within their own garage. With Hamilton demonstrating that he won't yield a single millimeter of tarmac, the internal friction has escalated to the toxic levels of the Alonso versus Hamilton rivalry of 2007. Even Luca di Montezemolo has weighed in, describing the performance gap to Mercedes as alarming, whilst Mattia Binotto, now spearheading the Audi project, couldn't resist a jab, suggesting that Ferrari still lacks clear operational processes. Hamilton maintains the scrap was fair, but for a team like Ferrari, which has endured a title drought lasting nearly 2 decades, the only fair outcome is the one that secures a victory, not the one that causes a teammate to hemorrhage time. The massive question hanging over the paddock is simple. Will Vasseur have the intestinal fortitude to impose strict team orders, or does Lewis Hamilton already run the show at Maranello? Hamilton arrived to fulfill a lifelong dream, but if he continues to sabotage race results in exchange for isolated podiums, Ferrari is destined to remain the first of the losers. What do you reckon? Is Hamilton right to assert his dominance immediately, or is he acting as a Trojan horse that will eventually cause Ferrari to implode from within? Did Villeneuve exaggerate the situation, or has he read the political game better than anyone else? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. A big hug, thanks, and catch you later.